Hey guys, it's Mr. Dave with the Ray Kitty Creation Workshop, and this is our very first episode of the Ray Kitty Science Project. It is going to be a TV show that we show you guys some fun science, some stuff you can do at home, some stuff better left to here in the studio, and just some fun things, some fun ways for you to enjoy science, some fun ways that maybe, hey, if I grab that stuff at home, I can do some of these things. So we do have some stuff that you can do at home. First off, straight out the gate, I want to tell you, if you are doing these things at home, make sure that you have supervision from an adult, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that dad's sleeping on the couch, I'm going to go get into the, no. What you're going to need is you're going to need an adult there with you just so that they can enjoy this science with you and they can see the fun stuff that you're doing and they can be part of it and you guys can share the wonders of science, okay? So make sure that you've got an adult with you when you're doing any of these experiments. Some of them that I am doing here are just for the studio, and I will tell you when I am doing ones that are just going to be for here in the studio to demonstrate some things, and that can be because they have either chemicals that you have to be extra careful with, or sometimes they're just hard to dispose of, and you have to be careful there. Any of the chemicals that you're going to be using, that you're going to be doing for the at-home projects are going to be things that you can purchase at the supermarket or at the dollar store. I love dollar store science. So you're going to end up seeing a lot of, hey, you can buy this at the dollar store. You can do this whole experiment for $5. So there's going to be a lot of that because I want these to be things that you can do very easily. So the ones for at home, we've got some things that you're going to use that are easy to get a hold of. You've probably already got them. For the ones that I'm going to be doing here are things that maybe I have to order from different chemical supply companies and things like that. So the bigger ones, I'll let you know when we're doing them. Hey, this one's not an at-home project. And the ones that are at home, I'm like, hey, give this a shot. Okay, so we'll have some at-home ones. We'll have some big demonstration ones. That's kind of the way that these shows are going to be. And we're not going to do it any different today. We're going to show you some fun little science that is not for at home, but we're going to start out with one that is for at home. Now, both of these are going to have kind of the same reaction, okay? Now, a reaction when we're working with chemistry, one of the reactions and one of the ways that you can tell a reaction is happening is changing color, okay? Now, changing color may not seem like a huge deal when you're talking about science, but a lot of times that's how we can tell what kind of chemical we're working with or what kind of chemical we're using or what happened when we put these chemicals together. Because it's not always like you see on TV where they pour something in there and everything explodes, luckily, okay? So we're not going to have any big explosions today, but we are going to have some color changes, okay? And we're going to talk about how these colors are changing, why they're changing, and we'll do some fun little playing around with the ones that I'm doing, okay? So we'll start out with our first one. This is called an iodine clock experiment, okay? And that is because we're going to be using some iodine. And this particular experiment isn't going to happen right away. And that's the fun of it. This is an experiment that even though that reaction is going to be happening, we're not going to see anything right away. And so that's very important that you kind of notice that because I don't want you to think, Mr. Dave, come on. Even though, like, if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be thinking, Mr. Dave, come on. But hopefully that doesn't happen. So we are going to be using the things that you're going to want to find. The things that we are going to be using is iodine. Okay, this you can purchase at the pharmacy or you can purchase at the grocery store. You've probably had your grandma put it on your elbow when you fell off your skateboard and it stained your elbow all kinds of yellow color. Now I point that out because iodine, while it's not dangerous to touch, it can stain things, okay? So adults, make sure that when you're working with iodine that you get the kids and you get them right over your very, very favorite rug before you start pouring the iodine. No, wait, don't do that. No, when you're pouring this iodine, you're just going to want to be careful. You're going to want to be over something. I have a little rag here that when I'm working with the iodine, after I've used my utensils, I'll put them down on the iodine. I just don't want to stain anything in the area. So our kind of word of caution is the iodine can stain, okay? None of these you want to drink. Okay, we'll kind of get that out of the way right away. I do have some chemicals here that are H2O, right? I do have water, but they're not in a sterile environment, so you don't want to drink any of these. If you're at your house and you got a glass of water that you're drinking, make sure that you mark that as water so you don't grab something else, okay? So we're going to be using iodine, okay? We are going to be using vitamin C, okay? Now, these vitamin C that we're going to be using, I picked up at the dollar store. So these are some dollar store vitamin C, and this one happens to look like this, but you can use the vitamin C that are little round, crunchy ones. What you want to look for is vitamin C that is just vitamin C. A lot of times they'll put other stuff in there with it, so it'll say like vitamin C with lots of other chemicals and nutrients to make you happy and healthy. You don't want all that, okay? You just want the vitamin C. So we've got our vitamin C, and I'm going to put this in this little bitty cup right here for now. Our iodine. The other kind of chemicals that we're going to be using in this one are on this other side over here. And we have starch, okay? And so we're going to be using a little bitty bit of starch. And this one here is hydrogen peroxide, okay? So we are going to be using some of this hydrogen peroxide. Again, this is something that you can purchase. You've probably got some in the medicine cabinet, but make sure that mom and dad know before you're using this. These are all very, if you're careful, these are safe chemicals, so you shouldn't have any problems. But you just want to make sure that you've got that supervision, okay? So we're going to start out with our vitamin C. You may notice I put it in this little cup here. Well, it's not going to do a lot of good in the little cup just like it is, okay? So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take your vitamin C and we're going to want to crush it, okay? So for that, what I have here is a giant plastic baseball bat. So we're going to take our, I'm just kidding. Don't swing a bat in the house. I'm only kidding about that part. We're not going to use a baseball bat. I have a little bitty stick, okay? I'm using a little stick. This is just a little wooden dowel for crushing our vitamin C, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'll put it on this part here so we can see it real well, is we're going to take our little stick. It's really pretty easy. If you have a little cup like this, these are great. These are 2-ounce cups, again, purchased at the dollar store, and they are great. If you want to build your Ray Kitty science kit, having these little cups are going to be something that really comes in handy. So we're going to take our vitamin C, and we're going to mash it up, okay? We're just going to mash it into a powder. Now, the finer that you get that powder, the better our reaction is going to go. So you're going to crush it into a little powder, okay? And this is really the same basic idea that they've used for making powders and making all these things for really forever, okay? So this little stick here, you can see I got that vitamin C on the end of it. But this stick here is what we're using our kind of mortar and pestle to go ahead and crush that vitamin C up. Now I've got some on the end of that stick. I'm just going to wipe it off here. And we've got vitamin C in this cup, okay? So I've got some vitamin C in this cup. What we're going to want to do is we are going to want to put some water in there. I've got distilled water, okay? Usually when I'm doing these science experiments, I'm going to use distilled water. Sometimes it's not going to matter. In this one here, it doesn't matter. Okay, now you can use water straight from the tap. You just turn the faucet on, get the water out of there, and that will work for this one here. But I was already using the distilled water, so I'm going to use some distilled water for this one. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pour the water into here, and we're going to make our first little chemical in here with that vitamin C. This solution, we're going to not use all of this solution. You just have to have the stoichiometry correct, okay? Stoichiometry is not a made-up word, believe it or not. Stoichiometry is a real word, and that is when you're making something, imagine if you're making cookies or if you're making cake or whatever. If you say, okay, well, I want to make a cake twice as big, so I'm just going to add twice as much flour and everything should be fine. Nope. Okay, what's going to happen is that's going to be really, really yucky. Or you can say, I'm going to add twice as much sugar, and that'll make it twice as, no. What you need to do is you need to get your levels or your amounts of everything and keep those ratios correct, okay? So stoichiometry, look it up, that's a fun word. All right, so with our vitamin C here, instead of using all of it, we're going to get 1 teaspoon of it. Okay, so we're going to get 1 teaspoon of our solution. So I'm going to stir it just a little bit. And then in this cup here, this one here, we're going to label it A. Okay, so this is going to be our solution A. Okay, and in solution A, we are going to put 1 little scoop of our vitamin C solution. Okay, so we've got 1 scoop of the vitamin C solution. I'm actually done with this now. I'm going to set it over here so it is out of the way, but that's our stock solution there. We are going to put half a teaspoon of the iodine, okay? So we've got our little, this one's 1/4, so I'm going to use 2 of them. So we've got our iodine solution. Now remember that iodine can stain, so I'm going to want to do it over the rag. Okay, so I'm going to put this over here. Our iodine will go in here. Bloop. And I'm going to put that into this 2 ounces of water here. Okay, so I will go 1. And 2. Okay, so I've got half a teaspoon of iodine in there. Okay. And now we're going to put this into this one. Now there's a little bit of vitamin C in there. You're going to see something fun happen when I pour this into here. The vitamin C is actually going to have a slight reaction with this iodine right away. And what you'll notice is as I'm pouring it in there, it gets clear, okay? So we have a clear solution now. Even though that iodine was that dark brown, this is our first half of what's going to happen in our iodine clock, is that vitamin C reacted with that iodine and gave us that nice white color, okay? So I'm going to put these over here on my piece of paper so I don't stain anything. There we go. Okay, so this is our solution A. Now we got to make our solution B, okay? So I need to write on there B. B. I got to turn it over, my B would be upside down. All right, there you go. So we have our solution B, okay? B is going to be our starch and our hydrogen peroxide. This is 3% hydrogen peroxide, so when you're doing at the store, usually the stuff you buy is 3%. This, again, was from, guess where? The dollar store. So this is dollar store peroxide. 3% is usually what you're going to find there, okay? So this one we are going to do directly into our cup, and we will have 3 teaspoons of hydrogen peroxide. Ready? So 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, so we got 3 teaspoons of hydrogen peroxide. All right, so that is going to give us part of it. Our next part is going to be our starch. Now, there's a big argument around my house whether this is stay flow, stop flow, staff flow. I don't know what you call it, but it's starch. Okay, it's liquid starch. And we are going to put half of a teaspoon of liquid starch in there. Okay, so let me make sure that this is a half. There you go. And we're going to put half of a teaspoon of liquid starch in there. Okay. Now, that one we didn't see any fun color changes yet. So we're going to go ahead and put our water in there. Okay, that is 2 ounces of water. And now we've got our solution A and our solution B. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to mix these together. Now, remember I said this was an iodine clock reaction. Okay, so swirl them around, make sure they're mixed pretty well. And I'm going to go back and forth. How many times? What? Let's say 10 times. So we'll go back and forth 10 times. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm glad I didn't say 20. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. Now, we've got this right here. remember, I said this is a clock reaction. So we're going to keep watching this one while I'm moving some stuff ready for my next one. Keep an eye on this, because what's happening right now is that reaction is actually happening even though you don't see it. You will see it happen all at once, and it'll happen very quickly, okay? So keep your eye on this one here, and our iodine clock reaction that you can do at home. You can change the speed of it depending on how much, if you work with that stoichiometry, you can change the speed of this one into happening a little faster. We made one that took 24 hours, and that was an accident. That was because we put way too much vitamin C in there. So you can change things by the amount of vitamin C that you put in, the amount of iodine, all those kind of things. So we're going to watch this one while we're prepping our next one. So this one is going to stay on the table on this little white thing here while we're working with this next one. Now, this is your at home. Keep an eye on it while we're working on this one, because something's going to happen here to this one pretty quick, okay? So this is our iodine clock experiment. If you're looking for what the materials were that we used this one, I will have all of those things posted for you so you can find out what all those things were and some instructions, that kind of thing, okay? This next one is our do it in the studio one. This is called a chemical stoplight, or a chemistry stoplight, okay? You know it's going to be something for in the studio when I break out the nice safety glasses here, okay? So what we're going to use for this one is dextrose, okay, or glucose. They're really the same thing. So you're pretty much okay there no matter which one you buy. This one here, I got at Whole Foods, but like I say, this one here we're just going to do for the TV. Now remember to keep an eye on this guy right here too, okay? All right, so I've got my beaker, okay? This is my little science beaker. We're going to set this one over here. I pre-measured these ones here just for the sake of time so that we can kind of get everything in there pretty quickly. So our dextrose, what we have is we have 15 grams of dextrose that we're going to be putting in here, okay? So I'm going to mix this one directly in my beaker, and you will be able to see some stuff. I'll move it over here so you kind of can see it on that white. And I'm going to grab another one, because when I'm pouring it back and forth here, I'm going to be spilling it a little. So let me grab another one of these rags. There we go. Okay. And so this is our chemistry our chemistry stoplight. Now, a stoplight has 3 colors. Okay. Now in New Mexico, we really only use 2, but there really are 3 on there. And so we're going to try and get all 3 of those colors. Okay. So the other things I'm going to use in here, this is indigo carmine. This is a wonderful little agent that they'll use to sometimes do clothing and things like that. But also it is an indicator, okay? Meaning it can detect changes in things, and it will give us a color based on those changes, okay? This is an oxidation and reduction experiment. So it's going to change things based on the oxygen levels in our little beaker, okay? So I'm going to put some of this stuff in here. This stuff here, we talked about this stuff staining. This stuff, man, you get this stuff on you and you will have blue hand. You will look like a Smurf for like a week and a half. So you've got to be very careful with this stuff here, and we're only going to use very little, okay? So I'm actually going to open the lid, and if you see that powder forming in the bottom there, yeah, that's the amount that we're going to use. Very little. I'm not opening the lid and dumping this out like a salt and pepper shaker. There is very little of this stuff that we're going to use in there because it's so potent. I've had this bottle for, I think, like 265 years, right around there. So, no, it'll go a long way. And our other one, this is the reason this experiment is a little more something that you want to be cautious with, is because we do use sodium hydroxide. Okay, sodium hydroxide is this is 100%, but it is what is used to make lye. It is like drain cleaner, those kind of things. It's a very powerful acid that will kind of give you some trouble if you get into too much contact with it. So that's why this one here is something that we will just do in the studio. So I'm going to put on my safety glasses, and I am going to pour this one here into our bottle. Okay. Now, if you're looking as I'm pouring, you'll see that there is already, as it's reacting just with that indigo carmine, a little bit of a rainbow forming around the outside, mainly of 3 colors, mainly of our red, our green, and our yellow, just like just like a regular stoplight, okay? So this here is dextrose. This is that stuff here. It's sweetener. It's stuff that they use for, when you don't use sugar in something, you want to use a sugar alternative. This is a sugar alternative, okay? So we have those chemicals in here, and they're all in dry form right now. So I'm going to, maybe you caught it. If you were watching closely, do you notice something happened to our iodine clock? Yeah, our iodine clock turned black. So while I was doing this part right here, if you're watching this like broadcast, you're going to have to watch it again when it comes out on the internet. Because if you rewind it, maybe some of you guys caught it. If you did catch it, like send me a note saying, hey, I caught it and it was at X time on the video, because now I want to see it. But we saw that all of a sudden, our little iodine clock turned to this nice dark black color, okay? So that is your iodine clock that you can do at home. That's a fun one to do. It's kind of a magic trick if you're like an at-home magician. This is a fun one to do for magic tricks and that kind of stuff. So our iodine clock gave us a nice, deep black color there, okay, as that changed. Like I say, if you're watching and you want to say, Mr. Dave, I saw it changed at whatever time, that's awesome. Let me know, because that's fun. Okay, so now we're going to work with our chemical traffic light, okay? So I'm going to pour some water in here, and let me move this guy. Actually, yeah, I'm going to move this guy over here for now, just to give me a little bit more room over here. And I'm going to pull over this guy. Okay, so I'm going to pour this in here. And if you watch, even as I'm pouring it, you're going to see a fun myriad of colors that are happening in the bottom of there. Now, I'm not done pouring it, but I want to kind of show you what's going on. In pouring it, we already have our strong blue, and that's from that carmine. We have a green, we have a red, and we have a yellow. That's all happening in there while I pour it. Now, stoichiometry, I'm going to go to about 600 milliliters here. You can see that change happening as I'm pouring. Okay. Now, there is a little bit of trial and error to this one as far as getting all of our colors right. You can see right now we have that nice colors that are formed down at the bottom, and we have, as it's coming up, we've got that nice greenish yellow. It is also exothermic, right? So I've got a little bit of warmth coming off the bottom, nothing to worry about, nothing hot. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to stir it, okay? Now, when I'm stirring it, let me move this out of the way so you can see. When I'm stirring it, we're going to see, hopefully, a change in those colors as I'm mixing that off of the bottom. Now we've got that strong red, okay? So red light, we've got our chemical traffic light here. Now this is an oxidation and reduction. When I'm moving it around, this strong red color that I've got in here will change colors as I'm putting it into this other beaker here. So when we're looking at this very, very red that's in here, this like bright red, it's yellow. Oh, okay, well, okay, hang on. Here we go. There you go, and okay. So now when we're looking at this nice bright red that's in here, when we're pouring it into there, we're going to get a nice a nice green color. And now the fun of this one is it is going to continue to reduce. That yellow color is when it is fully reduced. So when we start here, watch what happens as I start to pour it from container to container. We have that red color in there. If I can get enough oxygen in it, right, because it's an oxidation, as I'm pouring it, we'll start with our yellow to red. Then we're going to get, if we can get enough of those bubbles in there, we get the darker red as we're pouring it. This is why I put those little rags underneath, if you didn't notice, because I am going to be pouring this back and forth. So we've got our red. As I'm pouring it, now you may notice when it's in the air there, that we're getting a nice green color. This is our chemical traffic light. As I'm stirring it around, if you can stir it in that beaker and you can get enough air in there that you can actually get it to turn green in the beaker. I'll see if I can get that one real quick. Let me try pouring it in here. As you can see, as I'm pouring it, it goes to the green. When it's in the flask there, then we've got red. So I've got our red and our green, which are really the only colors that matter to a New Mexican as far as our traffic lights. New Mexicans only use red and green anyway. But if you wait around long enough, then you will end up seeing that green turn into a nice yellow color. Okay? So what's happening there is going from the green to the red to the yellow. We have our oxidized, and then all the way down to reduced where that oxygen is used up that's in there. And then as we add more oxygen, when you're pouring it, you can see that my red turns to green when I'm pouring it. And as it gets down in the bottom there, we come back to red. And then when we leave it here, while I'm wrapping up, if you continue to watch this as it's setting there, I'm going to do two so I can shake one a little bit. There you go. As we are watching it as it's setting there, we're going to notice that it will reduce down to that yellow. Okay? So what we did here today are all indicators, right? They're all color change experiments. Our chemical traffic light and our little iodine clock are all showing us how these chemicals, what's happening with these chemicals, and it's happening because the colors are changing to show us that something's happened inside of it, okay? Now, a kind of fun thing, if this one is reduced to the right, now this is just a bonus. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then you can say, Mr. Dave, why didn't it work? But we'll see what happens here. If I've got enough of the sodium hydroxide in there you go. Our iodine clock will turn to a nice, pretty green color, okay? And so what happened there is that indicator that I had in there, that iodine, using that iodine, it is now indicating a change in that pH, okay? So the pH has changed in this one. The iodine clock, when you're doing it at home, that last little part, the green part, that's not really something that you're going to be doing at home because it does involve some of these other chemicals. That's just a little bit of a bonus. If you are doing this one where you are pouring back and forth, you did notice I put these rags down because anytime you're pouring back and forth very quickly, you can make a mess. So safety for this one, guys, your iodine clock, the one that you are doing at home or that you can do at home, when it is finished, okay? When it is all done, not when I've added this, but when it's all done, your chemicals are safe to pour down the sink. Anytime you do an experiment, make sure that you can dispose of whatever you've created, okay? Because a lot of times with chemistry, you combine things, they're not safe to put into the sink or safe to dump into the toilet or whatever, okay? So this one here, your iodine clock, is safe to put into the sink. I've added some stuff here to where I will have to change this, but your normal iodine clock, you can put it in the sink. The ingredients that you'll need for that are iodine, vitamin C, some starch, and some hydrogen peroxide. I use distilled water. You don't have to use distilled water, okay? You can use tap water from home. You will want to get a couple little bitty cups because that's easier to pour it in. These little bitty cups are something that I would add to your Ray Kitty Science kit at home. You're going to want to have these little cups. You can buy them at the dollar store. You can get a bunch of them. They are great for all kinds of experiments. We're going to be using them a lot of times throughout the show. So you're going to want some of these little cups. Another thing is these guys here, some spoons, and just some general equipment around the house. So for your science kit, these are what we'll need for this week. We'll have some new stuff for next week. But that is it for our very first episode of the Ray Kitty Science Project. A huge shout out to Katharsis Media that is putting all this stuff together and putting all the little clips in and doing all that work. You guys are awesome. Thank you so, so much. And I've had a wonderful time. And I am Mr. Dave with the Ray Kitty Creation Workshop, and you're watching the Ray Kitty Science Project. And as I always say, in kind of our motto, science shows you matter. Thank you guys. Have a great week.